Okay, so let's kick off in the game of Ra, or Priests of Ra, actually. And you'll notice there's a little scoring aid here. There's no player aid card, but there is an explanation of the scoring itself on there. It's kind of hard to read, even if you're right up on it. I find it difficult to see and usually have to refer to the rule book in order to understand anything that's going on. Quick apology for the intro, but you know, I looked and Bored to Death did coverage of this much better in terms of explaining the rules themselves. Less probably useful if you're looking for quirkiness. Speaking of quirkiness, I don't know where the bags for this sucker went. I had them in my hand, I was doing it, and now after working they have this, and I just don't know what happened to them. Anyway, I guess I'll have to find new ones. Okay, so like in every game that I play of this nature, i.e. something where turns follow one another, I'm going to be rotating counterclockwise instead of clockwise just to emphasize that quirkiness. And we start off with the first player, and he draws a counter. Now, he's picked this up. Great. He gets the choice of which way he wants to lie it. Well, no reason not to. I mean, they're all the same. But he doesn't have an option at this point to Ra in. But he does have... so there's not going to be any auction here. So it goes to the next player. And this is one of the critical elements of the game. This is going to build up and become more and more valuable until somebody, or nature in the sense of the little Ra chips, decides, hey, I want that, or hey, that's forgot one of these. Oops. That's valuable enough that somebody else may want it, or whatever. There might be reasons for trying to get something to be thrown away, essentially. All right, so now the second player draws, and we just keep going through these drawings. There's a plague that makes this inherently less valuable. Over to the third player. And it's a Ra token, and we're going to give him this to remind me that that's up there. Now, this is a really valueless proposition. Nobody... this goes here, actually, because we're not playing with 5. Nobody really wants this. And starting with this guy, I think we're going to see everybody passing around. This goes away. Now, what does it mean? Well, it means that we've had an element of time where nothing of value happened. You can't pass time by... here's another one I forgot. Great. You can't pass time by... exchanging your turn for a Ra, but when these come up out of the bag, then they do pass the time through. That was such a useless thing, though. So now we move to him, and he gets a building. I'll put a blue one up. Again, it doesn't matter which side it is. We're over here. We have either green or red. No reason not to put green. Over to this guy. He's got 2 different kinds of people. Again, I'll put the face upside because there's no issue. Now we're back around to this guy. Now, this is beginning to get valuable. And there's an advantage to being the Ra person. But how valuable is this? I don't know. I think it's worth continuing to draw. He's got an option of people, and now it's getting more and more valuable. Now, in a 2-player game, it's a lot easier to assess, hey, do I want to fire this off or not? But I've got no idea, I've got no idea, because you could bid a low value chip and get something that's kind of nice. It's hard to tell when it's time to go. I'm beginning to feel like time to go is starting to arrive. So I'm going to draw another chip. And I use a little randomizer to make my decisions when it's tough for me. Now this is either another blue or a yellow. I've got the slight disadvantage here because I've just gone. I'm going to put it up as yellow and make it less valuable, actually. Now it's on this guy, and it's getting more and more valuable. He's got the best chip on the board. I think he's going to Ra it. And that leaves it to this guy. He's got the first bid. He's got to choose whether or not he wants it and what he's willing to pay for it. It's a middling value chip. A deal. I don't want to spend my big one. Do I want to spend my second biggest is the question. The answer is yes. Do I want to overbid here? No, I'll pass on this. Hoping for something a little better, although this is pretty decent. Now, looking at the chips, I know that I could get this for a 9 unless the first player says 13. So it's beginning to look a little more valuable. I'm going to give this guy a second chance at it. He indeed wants it at 9. And now the question is this worth your big bid for? And the first player decides, nah, it's not quite worth that much. And so the way I'm randomizing this is I make a roll, and if it kind of goes against my opinion, I make another roll to make sure, sort of. But there's almost always a chance that I'll go ahead with something. Of course, I'm not going to go with anything that doesn't have a good idea. So this guy doesn't get another chance to bid. He made his one bid. This guy bought it for 9 because he passed. And I don't remember who rawed in. Shit. God damn it. Alright. I'm going to have to look at the video, I guess, and try to figure it out, or just guess it. Hey, I know how many pieces have been played. But this is going to be a problem. It's easier when you're not soloing. So I've got a total of 2 and 5 is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like this guy rawed in. No. No, that doesn't make sense. Oh, I got an extra chip, and it should be this guy rawed in. Okay. I think. So, back to here. This guy bought it for 9. Flips this over, and gets all these chips. And now we get to keep drawing until the next purchase. Now I'm going to pause here and, not follow in detail every chip draw because there's really no value to that. I'll come back when there's auctions, essentially. Okay, interesting situation. The first 2 players, this guy and then this guy, drew chips, and they said, we don't want to match up with him. Well, they've ended up creating a 4-way lineup there, and this guy's decided, I'm rawing in. I'm putting a bid out here. He thinks his 5 might carry this. Now, the question is this worth it to any of the other people, and does it even matter? Because he's willing to go with that 5. Nobody else is interested in it. He buys the 5. He gets the bigger 9-point chip, and he's grabbed a couple. He's grabbed something interesting, which is the 4 pieces. The reason you want the 4 pieces, well, is it written here? At least 2 of my... I don't know if it's spelled out here, so we have to turn to the rule book, try to find the English section, of course, and see what the bonus is. If you have all 4 different types, you get 2 onks. So that's kind of what he's going for. He's got in the buildings, he got a cheap draw here. He's not sure he's going to get more than that with his 5 chip, but the 5 chip is the best of the low chips, so he may have misspent there. Anyway, since he rawed in, we're over here for the first player, for the next draw. And that next draw is another raw. Now, nobody wants to bid just to get this at this point in the game. Late in the game, it might be worth putting a bid out to grab like on the 3rd round, to grab a very valuable chip, very valuable sun token, if things are very late here. But there's no way anybody's interested in just getting that 5-point chip. It's not even a valuable chip. So we push down to the next player, and we'll start seeing. Now he's got the option of a green building. He definitely doesn't want to give that because that'll improve the value for him. So he'll put the red one out here, and we'll just continue going around until the next auction. And we've got another raw going in here. This is a nice number of pieces. He thinks he can get away with his 4. I didn't even roll for this. It just felt natural to put this in. And the more I start playing it solo, or playing not solo for that matter, the easier it is for me to just get this feel, oh yeah, I'm ready for this. Every now and then it might come to edge cases like it did before, but I don't have to worry about that in this case. And he's going to drop his 4 bid on here. Now, does the second player want to buy this for 10? He thinks he probably can get it for 10. He gets a match on 1 building. There's no priest, so he can't flip anything. He gets a couple of pyramid pieces. Now, a pair of buildings is worth only 2 points, right? And the different buildings, well, he's not going to have many of those completed, but this gets him a lot of building pieces, which is kind of a positive effect. It also gets him a couple of these pyramid pieces. I'm going to say he's got a possible interest in it. So this guy rod in with the I'm willing to pay 4 for it, basically, but I'm also willing to let somebody else pay more than that for it. He's going to pass on it. This guy says, you know, I know that 4 is going to go, so he's got to think if 6 is worth it, and I think it is. And now this guy's got to decide if his secondary piece, the 7, is worth it. And again, I think it is. So I'm kind of slanting towards it, but I am rolling. He's going to go in at 7. Does he want to go in at 8 for this pile? That's a hard call. Nah. So the 7 buck goes in. This comes down. That'll be available for next turn. And then all of these are collected here. And the turn passes to the next player. So spinning around, starting from this guy, we had a series of picks. And it's kind of interesting making the actual picks as the game begins to progress and people start to get stuff. The choices of which way you want to face the tile becomes important. So this guy had the choice between green or red. He chose red because another player had a green tile, but then the second player to picked another red to make this valuable to him if he got that set alone. Then the third player picks a red building to match his own. And the fourth player over here, well, it didn't really matter which way he plays this as far as he could see. It's worth the same either way, so I did a face up just because, I don't know. But when we came around to the first player again, he picked a raw tile. We got an auction going off. Got to figure out what's going to happen. Now for him, this is a valuable auction. It probably gets him the lead in the people of this particular type, which is worth 5 points. It gets him a 4th building type, which is not good. I mean, he wants to pair up with his buildings. It also gets him a good shot at the lead of the blue people. So this is like 10 points, and he's doing pretty well. I'd say there's a pretty good chance he wants this, but he doesn't have to bid first. The first player's over here. Now, he hasn't collected anything. It gets him a jump on a color. I think it's worth something, but I don't think it's worth the 13 bid. Here's the thing. There are a lot of spaces of time left. And if you're the last person left, you can kind of just run the deck until you have to bid on something. Either because an auto raw or, hey, it's all the way full and you like it. That's a really nice position to be in. All right. So I think he's going to open up with a 6. That puts it on him. Does he want it for a dozen points? Definitely not on him. Now, does he want it for 8? 8's a pretty good bid. It's the second. His high tier isn't that good, but it's better than anything except for everybody's high tier. So I'd say it's kind of unlikely. This doesn't look like that rich a take. And he's going to pass on it. And our first player, does he want this for 10? This will secure him a decent number of points, but it'll be his last bid. In fact, he won't. I don't believe he's even allowed to play anymore. He's certainly not allowed to raw. Let's take a look at these rules. And again, a player without sons takes no actions in a turn. So he'd be forfeiting, wouldn't even have any control over what's showing up, which is kind of painful. But it is a wealthy version. I'm going to roll. I feel like this is sort of there's a lot of space here, so I'm only going to say on a 1 or a 2. And he's going to go for it. And it's his for 10 points. Could end up being a bad choice, a very bad choice, if good options came up. But really good options, that 10's not going to take. Everybody's got a higher bid than him. So this may be about as good as he can expect. And that's going to move us over to here for our first player for the next set of draws. By the way, I should note, these guys are hidden information in the game. Now, the reality is you could track this, so people who play allowing paper and pencil or whatever might as well play with them face up to reduce time. Personally, I would rather leave them face down in an opposed game, but I'm leaving them face up here just because it's easier to make change for that. Okay, we've spun around to the next auction. This guy started things off, and people again playing to their best interests. The second player played a green. That would give him the lead in the greens. Great. As it came around to him again, he said, hey, wait a minute. I got this cheap chit. I'm willing to buy this set for 3. Get this big 10 bid later, which will, I've only got a 5 there. So getting a big bidder is kind of nice. Next time it comes around, it's going to probably be a medium weight thing, and this guy is going to bid it. So I'm going to fire this off. If I don't get it, I clear out a bunch of things that aren't that valuable, and I get rid of somebody's higher bid than mine. And if I do get it, I think it's a value at 3. That's going to put it over to this guy, and I think he's going to just fire it off at 4. It's worth 4 to him, which puts it at him a 6. Looking at the table, 6 is, it's not bad, but it kind of iffy on it. I'm not sure if I want to take it. I think I'm going to hold off on it and let him have it for 4, and he's certainly not going to 12 on it. So we got another set which goes into play, and I think we're moving over here if I can find the die. Once again we swing around, and this guy again raws in. He wants this one. He might be willing to pay 12 for it. It comes with a green dude, which will match up with his green dude. Comes with a building that matches with his building. More pyramid shape, and something that's not terribly valuable to him. But that's okay. Is it worth a 12? Maybe not. He may have jumped in a little too early. And that puts it to this guy, and he says, this priest means that I could change this to green. I got a yellow and a green dude. That'll cancel out the green dude up there, and it'll give me the lead in yellow. I think it's worth an 8 bid. I don't think it's worth any higher, and higher doesn't really matter, because if you look at the values, 8 and 11, both are under 12 and 13, and both are above 6. So relative value is the same. Now we're on this guy. Does he want to go to 13 for this? Certainly not. He thinks with this much time left, he can get some good deals if he's sitting on the only pip, on the only sun tokens. So now the question is him. Did he want it for 12? He should know that he wasn't going to get it for the 3 pip, and it was kind of a nice deal for him. It was kind of too rich. Like, if he's not going to get it for 3, was he willing to pay 12 for it? It's really not that rich an option. Oh, it's a hard call. I think he's going to pass. He's got regrets towards it. It was a set that he wants because of the buildings, but it doesn't quite do it in so many ways. So now the question becomes, good old, this guy is going to take it for the 8, and he's going to flip that one tile. And that gets him some more. And, in a sense, sometimes you make an error like that, and it just happens, and now he gets to open up. Remember, we're skipping this guy from now on, at least for the rest of this epic. And this set has come up with a couple of priests. They're a quick couple points each. Some pyramid pieces, which are of interest to everyone at this point in the game, really. But this guy's already got a couple of them. He's also got one of these blue-yellow buildings, which could be good for either one. The way he's looking at it is, I'd like this. I'm willing to pay 3 for it. I don't think he's willing to pay 11. It'll probably go to him for 6. And indeed, that's what's going to happen. He's not going to bid 11 on it, I don't think. It's not that big a bonus. The priests aren't that helpful. Pyramids, nice, but they're only valuable at the end of the game. So what it comes down to is a single building for him, which would be 2 points for the rest of the game, for all 3 periods. 6 points overall. Nice positioning, but probably not worth an 11-point bid. He can score more points, he thinks, off of it. This guy says, well, I know that 2 is going to get overbid. He wanted this for 3. So I'm going to try the 6, and here's the question. Is it worth 12? No. So we're in there. These priests. And it really doesn't matter what color you set something at in this position. I think there's 2 people with blue. We'll set it at yellow. We can always... no, we can't. Not with old priests. Alright. And he rod. That means we're back over here. And another raw by this player here. Now, he's interested in it because it gives him his building match. It would give him dominance in green. And the extra pyramid piece. Seems worth maybe even the 12 piece. Certainly worth the 3. Here's the problem. This guy is also interested in it. Not so much for the building, but to get the score on the people. That's, I don't know, some value that is I'm unable to read here. At least 2 and at most of a type 5. And most of a type. It's 5 victory points. So that's a decent amount of points. Is it worth jumping your 11 in there? Yeah, he's going to do it. And now here's the question. Is it worth the 12 for him? I think it is. I don't think he is going to get as good an option on that. He's not interested in it at 13. So we see the advantage of being the guy who declares the auction. Is that you get to make that final choice. Do I want to make the overbid? That puts it again here at the first. Well, the second play is a priest. Now, here's the question. It's 2 victory points, no question. That's not too bad. It really isn't. Remember, collecting the majority in one of these is worth 5. Getting a building, a set, is worth 2. Frankly, I think he just got the draw is basically what happened. I think he's willing to go for 2, especially since he gets the big 12 bid on there. I don't think anyone's going to overcome that, though. He'd like to keep and see if he can get something more valuable to him. So, we'll grab that priest. And we still have 3 players involved. Blue started things off, picked a yellow piece because on the other side is blue. He's already got a pair of blues. He'd like to work towards all colors. And then we had 2 of these pyramids. We're back on blue. He's going to raw this. Not because he terribly wants it, but because this is looking really good for anyone else. And they've got big bids. They probably don't want it, but it's kind of depriving them of what looks like a good portion. And indeed, nobody's going to bid on this. He's going to get this. He's now out of the bidding. But's gotten himself a lot of pyramids. And pyramids at the end, well, could be worth quite a few points, actually. And getting the chambers, well, you need to have at least 3... I don't know, 3 greater 5. I think if you have 3 or 4 is where you get points, is what that's trying to express. You got to look in the rules to understand what they're trying to express with the hieroglyphics here until you're used to it. Okay, well, now this guy, who for some reason I'm thinking is blue because he has blue buildings or whatever, is out of the bidding. And now we only have 2 players playing, and they're only going to get 2 more auctions. Successful auctions. There's a lot of random event auctions possible, so they might play this out for a long time, and this guy may have made a mistake in throwing that 3-point bid out there, although he wasn't likely to get much with it, really. And here's the risk. There haven't been that many Ra's drawn out of the bag, and one just got drawn. Nobody wants just but bidding the 3-sun. In fact, that's kind of a useless thing. It's better to hold on to a high-valued sun for later. So, nobody bid on that. So, with only 2 players left, both holding a big tile, we had an auto Ra come out, but there were 2 plagues in place. Now, granted, this guy can get rid of a plague, and he's the guy who has sort of the power position, but this is not worth 13 points, even without the plagues. So it's just going to get discarded. And odd, even, doot. That shifts this over here. A decent set up here. 2 greens would give him the lead in green. A red city space, not valuable right now to either of the 2 players involved, but will be available later. A blue person, that's not going to be enough to give a full set of the different colored people, so that's not really worth anything. And a bonus pyramid space, not of his color, but he can start working on that color. There's also a priest, which means that one of the people could be flipped, which would give him a 3rd yellow. He doesn't really need that. Or this could be flipped to blue, which isn't terribly helpful either. I think what's going to happen, this guy has to bid first. Does he want it? It doesn't really give him any points. So he's going to pass on it, but this guy does want it for the 11 points. Now this means that, color-wise, he doesn't want a green building. He actually positioned the building that way. This means we just run through a sequence for this guy. Now, if he gets a Ra, he can say, no, I don't want it, just like he could have at any other point. However, it makes the next Ra something he does probably want to buy, unless exchanging the 13 for the 11 is a penalty too great compared to, what he's going to be picking up. So we'll see what he gets on his free run here. Well, his first free run was just a Ra. That's not good. Now he's down to 1 more shot. Another Ra, and that clears this out. Nothing good happened. And let's see what we got. First thing we've got to do is figure out who's going to be playing next. I think it's this guy, but I'm not positive because I don't remember how after an epoch who goes next. And yeah, there's not a lot of rules here, but the player with the highest numbered sun will be beginning the next epoch. So that's pretty easy. These all just flip up, and I think 13 is the highest we have in this deck. That 11 stays out there. It's kind of a bonus. He didn't want to pay his 13 space for it. In a sense, he really would have liked to have gained something for those 2 last spaces. Alright. He kind of got screwed there and didn't get much. Let's see what we got for scoring. And I got to use the rule book for this because trying to understand this, even if it was a large enough font that it was readable, is just too difficult. So we open this up and start scoring. Okay, people. People are the first thing to score. Well, whoever has the most is going to get a 5-pointer, and you get a bonus for having all the different kinds of people. Well, let's start up here. He doesn't have any people. Here he's got 3 greens and a blue. The blue's not going to help him. 3 greens isn't going to do it because for greens, 4 of them is the lead. So this guy is going to get a 5, and I think these are 5s. Looks like it. So he gets a 5 for his people. His other people, well, he also has the most yellows, so he'll get a 5 for that. And between the 2, well, we can give him a U. Alright. Over here, this guy has the most reds and the most blues. That's worth a U as well. But he also has 1 of each type, which is worth 2 unks. And if you have 3 of them, you get 1. So he's going to get 2 ankhs for his people. And does anybody have all 3 sets? He has 3, so he gets an ankh. And ankhs are scored at the end of the game, remember. Alright, so I think we've scored all the people. And normally, this is, you know, each person can be in charge of their own scoring, kind of. And at least helping out a little bit with it. But one person trying to figure it all out is tough. Okay, how about the buildings? Well, we're interested in pairs of buildings and complete sets of pairs of buildings. All right. Well, each pair of buildings is only worth 2 points, and completing buildings of all types or of 3 types are bonuses at 10 and 5 points. Well, this guy only gets 2 points. That's what he's going to score off that. This guy, he's got 1 of each color, but he doesn't have 1 of each color completed, so he gets no points for that. Over here, nothing. Over here, this guy gets a 2-pointer for his set. Now, we go, what is this? Tablets. Right. Okay. Priests. Each priest is going to be worth 2 points. Well, let's see. Here we got a quick 6 points for him. And the reason you start off with points is because if you get plagues early on, you can lose some points. It's not like you can spend them for anything or anything. No priests. Priests over here, 2 of them. That gives him 4 points. And none over here. And he gets this U here. And let's see what else we got here. Plagues. Nobody picked up any plagues. Pyramid doesn't score yet. But what does happen here, somewhere or another it tells you, all people and all priests are going to be returned to the box. So, you know, whatever scoring you get off these is a one-time event. Whereas the buildings and everything, if you can get some early, they stick around and can increase your score in later periods. Now we're set up and we're basically ready to go. We just start over again with this guy who's got the 13 and the 12. He's got a lot of buying power in his hands. Sometimes that doesn't work out though. Like we saw with his 13, highest card on the thing, he didn't get anything for it. That's often the case, is you don't see anything good enough and it looks like there's going to be enough spaces that you'll get a free run, and it just doesn't help you. Alright, I'm going to load this up. Long video. Hopefully other plays will be in less detail, but it's kind of hard to justify doing a playthrough of this if you don't capture everything. The truth of the matter is, this is probably going to take longer on video, even though I cut a lot of the effort, than it would actually playing it. Actually playing it, it's very fast. Everybody's just passing the bag, slapping pieces down, and then eventually, rah, and it just runs. I'm doing a lot of analysis and thinking. To tell you the truth, when you're playing it, you're usually not thinking as much as I'm thinking aloud. Anyway, of course, you're usually probably not holding these discussions with yourself about how much you're thinking. Alright, this is getting recursive. Up it goes.